Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a little bit of a chatty video where I make some tea, and we're going to drink some tea, and we're going to talk about the goals, new life goals for the year, fun times. And I'm going to review the life goals that I set last year, and we'll see whether I've made any progress on them. And then we're going to unveil or talk about my goals for this year. And along the way, I'll share what's on my bucket list and some of the stuff I've learned around the idea of goal setting over the last 12 months or so. All right, so let's start by reviewing last year's goals. The first one on the list, which is interesting, was to write an amazing bestseller book, which did absolutely not end up going to plan. I had this vague idea that, in January last year, I was like, you know what? A book is 80,000 words. I'm a pretty fast typist, if I say so myself. Therefore, I should be able to write 2,000 words a day. And so within 42 days, i.e. 6 weeks, I should be able to get out the first draft of the book, and it should be able to be good. And so I was like, great, by the middle of February 2021, I will have a book first draft. It is now January 2022, a whole year later, and I still haven't got a book first draft. The writing a book has proven to be a lot harder than I originally thought. And we spent a bunch of time thrashing back and forth, trying to figure out what the key ideas are and doing the proposal and getting book deals in various countries. Now we've got all of that, and now I need to write the first draft of the book. And so I've given myself, my publisher deadline is July, so the middle of this year, but I've given myself the deadline of March. By March, I'll have the first draft, and then we'll spend a few months hopefully tightening it up and trying to actually make it good, because the vibe is that the first draft of a book is always really, really crap, and you just have to lean into that and make a really crappy first draft. The next goal we had was make progress towards finding a wife. And I put this into my anti-wasteman system, which is a Notion template that I'll link down below. By the way, thank you Notion for sponsoring this video, more on them later. Anyway, make progress towards finding a wife. Why? Well, because relationships are one of the most important parts of life, and it's good to take this seriously moving forward. Plus, it would be fun. And hopefully, if I meet the right person, my life will be better. Although, TBH, I can't imagine that, lol. That's what I wrote about a year ago. So, how did that go? Well, I feel like I have actually made progress towards finding a wife. Setting that as a sort of one of my active goals that I was working on for last year did genuinely make me take dating more seriously. It was a bit of a shame about lockdown, but I managed to go on a few dates, and I actually met someone who I'm feeling pretty good about. So more on that in a later video. We'll keep this one fairly PG for now, am I right? Goal number 3 was 6-pack abs. Why? Because it's a fun challenge, would potentially help the wife quest. Never had abs before, so it's a novelty, and would encourage healthy behaviors-ish. And I had reasoned that by December 2021, I'll have had a period of at least 2 weeks where my abs are showing. I need to convert this into a body fat percentage. This did not end up working out. I guess I sort of tried to try. I didn't really try properly. I was just like, I'll kind of vaguely give it a go. I did get a personal trainer, which really helped, and I did start kind of counting my macros and doing that kind of stuff. But I realized pretty quickly into the year that I don't really care massively about the goal. I think this is one of the things where if you are working on a goal that requires lots of time, effort, and some level of sacrifice, it's actually quite hard to consistently motivate yourself to work towards it if you fundamentally don't actually care about the goal at the end of it. So the reason I wanted 6-pack abs was sort of just for the bands. I didn't really have a compelling reason other than this vague idea that, maybe it'll make me more attractive. So yeah, that did not happen. Maybe it's a thing that I might actually go for this year, but we'll see. Right, so goal number 4 was to busk on the London Underground. Would be cool. It's been on my bucket list for ages now. And I said that by December, I'll have had my busking license for the London Underground, and I'll have filmed myself busking at least once. Ended up not happening. I actually did reach out to a friend, Mary Spender, who is a musician and YouTuber. Link in the video description if you want to check her out. And someone emailed me who saw that on my bucket list and said that apparently the London Underground, because of COVID, was stopping renewing licenses for buskers on it. I haven't really looked into it. It's not a huge priority anymore, so whatever. Goal number 5, or whatever we are, was to become a better storyteller. And I did actually have private coaching with a chap called Matthew Dix, who is one of the world's best storytellers. He's won a bunch of competitions and written a really good book called Storyworthy. So I had some sessions with him, and I did kind of improve my storytelling ability. But initially what started off as coaching on how to be a better storyteller ended up actually turning into coaching on how to write my book better. And I realized that actually the sessions I have with Matthew, I would rather we work on the book rather than we work on my verbal storytelling abilities, because I think they're fine. I decided after a while that this wasn't a huge priority. And finally, one of my goals for last year was to learn to draw like a concept artist, and I really wanted to learn how to draw. And I did actually do this. For about 3 or 4 months, I had an art teacher called Alessandro, and we had lessons 2 or 3 times a week, where I was kind of practicing human anatomy and learning how to draw and shade and all that kind of stuff. And after a few months, I realized that I was waking up in the morning and I was like, oh crap, I have an art lesson now. And when I had that feeling of, oh crap, I don't want to do this, I stuck with it for a while. I was like, okay, well, not everything is fun all the time. But my general philosophy for life is that I don't really want to do stuff that feels like a lot of hard work and effort to do. I'd rather work with my own natural motivations and work with my energies. That sounds a bit woo-woo. But I'd rather do things that I genuinely enjoy that lead to good outcomes rather than kind of force myself to do these things. And the art lessons were fun, but after a few months I realized that actually I don't have that much time in my life with all the other stuff that's going on with the book and the business and the YouTube channel, and the art lessons became not a priority. So I guess if we're thinking about lessons that I've learned for goal setting, there's a few things that come to mind. Firstly, I think it's actually about setting fewer goals rather than more goals. I think probably I had too many things last year that I was like, you know what, I really want to work on this thing. And then after a while of working on them, I realized actually, time is starting to run out. I kind of want to have a healthy, balanced life. I don't quite have enough drive or productivity to get absolutely everything done. Therefore, I'm going to choose to abandon certain activities. And this is a thing that Oliver Burkeman talks about in his really good book, 4,000 Weeks, which is that in a dream world, we would have the time to do all the things. Our to-do list would be up to date. We would be replying to all our friends. We'd be hosting dinner parties. We'd be crushing it at work. We'd be writing our book. In the real world, we're actually never going to have time to do all the things that we want to do. And so we have to strategically decide what are the things that we want to fail at. And I strategically decided last year to fail at the art lessons, to fail at the busking thing, to fail at the six-pack abs thing, because I realized that I just don't care enough about those things compared to the other stuff that I was working on. The other thing I realized is that it's a lot easier to work on a goal when that goal is a side effect of something else that you want to do. So I'll use an example. When I first learned to code, I never set out to learn to code. I set out to create my personal website and then later to build a game. And learning to code was a thing that kind of happened as a side effect of this other wider project that I cared about that I was working towards. Similarly, I have friends who learned to play the piano, and they learned to play properly by following the path and doing things with the classical music and all that jazz. And they hated learning to play the piano because they weren't working towards anything that they fundamentally cared about. Whereas I've got other friends, including myself, I learned to play the piano because I wanted to be able to play Disney songs by ear. That was the project that I was aiming for. And learning the piano kind of happened as a side effect. And for the guitar as well, I didn't want to learn the guitar. I wanted to be able to play chords to accompany myself and my friends. And because I had that as a goal, learning the guitar kind of happened as a side effect. And I think one of the mistakes I made last year is that, I've often had on my bucket list, get more fit, take my health more seriously, take stretching more seriously, learn to cook. And I've realized recently that I'm never going to learn something just for its own sake in isolation. I don't know anyone who's learned to code by actually just saying, I want to learn to code and then learning. The only people I know who've ever learned to code have had projects to work on and have learned to code as a side effect. So this year, when it comes to my goal setting, what I'm really thinking about is, okay, if I care about taking cooking seriously, how can I make the learning to cook a side effect of something else that I want to do? And finally, one thing that I've learned or rather realized or appreciated more recently is that it's actually completely okay to change your mind. I think a lot of us set ourselves these New Year's resolutions and I want to work on these goals for the year. And then we get new data points, we realize, we try it and we fail at some of the stuff and we realize, cool, that's okay. The more we try something, the more data points we get about the thing. And so there's very little point in clinging to this vision that we kind of vaguely decided a year ago, just because we decided a year ago. And there's a really good quote that apparently came from Einstein, although it's probably a bit of a myth, where it's plans are totally pointless, but planning is indispensable. And I think I do fully agree with that. Even within our business, we spend a lot of time planning and strategizing. And the plans that we come up with are ultimately not really that useful because stuff changes so quickly. But the act of planning and the act of actually intentionally figuring out what are my goals for the year, what are the business goals for the year, what are my goals in health, wealth, love, happiness, and impact. Even if the plan changes, just the fact that you spent the time planning is actually helpful. Okay, so that was a bit of a review of the goals and the lessons. I now actually have a call to go to, and so I'm gonna see you in about an hour. Let's go. Alrighty, we are back. Let's now talk about the goals that I'm going to be setting for the new year. And I have converted my anti-waste man system into a Notion template linked in the video description. Thank you, Notion, for sponsoring this video, but I had this template anyway from last year as well. I've just turned it into templates rather than tables just to make it a little bit easier to read. So for each of my goals, I'm going to go through how I am thinking about how to set the goals using the anti-waste man system, and we'll see what happens. So goal number one is to write my book properly. So the dream here is to write my book. Or rather, the dream is to write a book I'm proud of. Now, this is an interesting thing with goal setting, is because before I had a smart goal type thing, specific, measurable, all that kind of stuff. And I realized I'm not really a huge fan of the whole smart goal vibe, because achievable and realistic are kind of the same thing. Timely and sort of specific are kind of the same thing. It's got a few issues with it, but everyone talks about smart goal setting, so we're gonna humor that a little bit. And crucially, it's write a book I'm proud of, because that is a goal that's 100% within my control. This is another thing I've realized over the last year, that generally for goals that we want to set, most of our goals should be goals that are 100% within our control. So I don't want to write a book that hits a New York Times bestseller list. Well, although I do, but I don't want to have that as a goal. And I don't want to write a book that critics are proud of, although I do, but I don't want that as a goal because it relies on someone else being the gatekeeper to whether I actually accomplish this thing that I want to do. I want it to be write a book I'm proud of, because that is something that's 100% within my control. So why do I want to write the book? Well, firstly, because it's fun, and it's gonna be fun, and it's kind of fun doing the process of writing a book. Also, I now have a bunch of book deals. Got a book deal in America and in the UK and in a bunch of different countries for translation. So I actually need to write the book because publishers have paid money for it already in advance. And so I now need to deliver on that promise that I've made, which is a pretty compelling reason to write the book. It could be an interesting way to reach a new audience, people who may not necessarily watch YouTube videos, but might read a book. Could be good. And to be honest, I've always kind of wanted to write a book. And if the book is good, it could hopefully unlock interesting opportunities further down the line. So that's why I want to write a book I'm proud of. Smart goal-wise, I want to aim to complete the first draft by the 31st of March and send the final manuscript to the publishers by the 31st of July. Fingers crossed, we'll see if that works. Next, the question is, what habit do I want to do that is going to make this more likely to happen? And I've already started doing this, which is that every single day, except Mondays where we have team meetings all day, every day, Tuesday through to Sunday, from 9 a.m. till 12 noon, I have that 3 hours blocked out for writing time. And what we've also tried to do is clear my calendar of all the kind of businessy type stuff, so I'm not in meetings all week, which was a problem like earlier this year, so that I have more time to write the book. Next, we have an interesting question. How surprised would I be if I failed on a scale of a 1 to 10? So 1 being not surprised at all and 10 being very surprised. I would give myself a 7 for this. I would be reasonably surprised if I didn't manage to hit these deadlines and to write a book I'm proud of. I'm still maybe in that sort of uninformed optimism stage, where they talk about with the dip and stuff, but honestly, like, I would be pretty surprised if I didn't manage to do this. Next, we ask, what are the top 3 reasons that I might fail at the goal? Okay, so reason number 1 might be that don't make enough time to write the book. Reason number 2 might be that it takes longer than expected to make it good. And reason number 3 might be that urgent things keep propping up so that I never make time for it, which kind of relates to point number 1. Now, this is the sort of thing that I find just really useful to think about, like, what are the top 3 reasons why I might fail at this thing for whatever goal that I set, whether it's at the start of the year or not. And I think it's something that more people should think about. And anytime I have a friend who says, hey, I want to really do this thing, I ask them, oh, okay, cool. So just out of curiosity, how surprised would you be if you failed? And what are the top 3 reasons you might fail? And these are like genuinely things that people tend not to ask themselves when it comes to goal setting. And so having it as part of the template, as part of the system, I found last year was very helpful, and I'm hoping it'll be helpful this year as well. The next question is, who can help? Who, not how. Good book by Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan as well. Like, who can we enlist to help with the book writing journey? So firstly, book coach, editors, agent, team, audience. Like, there's a bunch of people who can help on the book writing journey, and I've done a bunch of brainstorming to help to figure out how these people might help. Next, we come to how can I stack the deck to succeed? So what are the things I can do to help minimize the the risk of that these top 3 reasons would happen. So firstly, I can make sure the calendar is always empty for book writing. I can tell my team the importance of me having time to write the book so that they don't randomly put stuff in my calendar that interferes with book writing time. I can be super disciplined with my writing habit and actually make sure that when I'm sitting down, I'm actually writing the book rather than browsing Twitter or other things that I tend to do. And to avoid the procrastination thing that's inevitably gonna happen, I can make it super easy to get started with the book each morning, like having the computer out already, knowing what I'm gonna write the night before or while I'm in bed the morning of, so that when I get to the computer, I can just start writing without having to first think, oh, what did I actually have to do? And then the final question of the anti-waste man system is, what is the action that I can take right now while I'm doing this goal setting thing to make sure I will be on my path to achieving my goal? And that is blocking out time in the calendar, which I have done already. I actually did that a couple weeks ago, making sure that 9 to 12 every single morning, other than Mondays, is blocked out for book writing time. All right, so that was goal number 1. Let's move on to goal number 2. So I'm gonna click this add a new goal button, which conveniently fills all this stuff in. I'm not gonna bother with it right now, but I will fill this in afterwards, and it will all be in the template that's linked down below. So writing the book is goal number 1 that I need to do for the year. And to be honest, if that's the only goal that I managed to accomplish this year, I think this year will have been time well spent. Goal number 2 for me is to build a sustainable fitness habit. I'm not setting a goal this year that like I wanna get 6-pack abs or anything like that. Basically, I just wanna have a habit whereby I will work out 3 or 4 times a week and enjoy myself. Recently, I subscribed to Apple Fitness Plus, and I did my first Apple Fitness Plus workout a couple of days ago. And I've also been working with an accountability coach who checks in with me every week and says to me, are you making progress on this stuff? And I stick time in my calendar where I'm gonna work out, and then he messages me as well to be like, hey, how was the workout? And that's just a useful way of me to add in an extra layer of accountability to do this thing that I genuinely want to do, but that I might struggle to do otherwise. Ideally, I would have a project that I'm working towards. We haven't found one yet, but one thing I've always wanted to do, well, not always, for the last few years, it's been on my bucket list to become a Gymshark athlete. Another thing I'm toying with the idea of is like, wouldn't it be cool to try and get hench and then get on like the front cover of maybe Men's Health magazine or something like that, just for fun, just for the bounce, but to have a project to work towards so that kind of me working out is not an exercise in just lifting weights up and down against gravity, but it's actually working towards something. So similar to the learn to code example, when you have a project, it's easier to learn the thing. Similarly, I think if I had a fitness project, it would be easier to actually keep up the sustainable fitness journey. Goal number 3 was actually to learn to cook, but since the stuff that I've learned this year about goal setting, I have changed the goal away from learn to cook. And I've made the goal to host regular dinner parties. So what I ideally want to do is every 1 or 2 weeks, I want to host a party, an intimate dinner at my flat in London, where I invite some friends over, and I want to try and mix up friendship groups so that my friends from different circles can get to know one another. And I'll make it a point that instead of ordering takeaway for those dinner parties, I will have to cook something for those dinner parties. So I'm hoping that this little project will be a forcing function that encourages me to learn how to cook. And since I've set this, actually, I think tomorrow evening is my first kind of trial dinner party. I've messaged a few friends from university, inviting them over. I don't have any idea what I'm gonna cook yet, but I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos, binging with Babish and Ethan and like Alex French Guy and Pro Home Cooks and these other cool cooking YouTube channels. So hopefully tomorrow's meal will go well. Goal number 4 is to take stretching more seriously. So I have really bad posture. I've got anterior pelvic tilt and I'm not very flexible at all. And so for the last few years, I've had do stretching on my New Year's resolutions list. But this year, I now have a project to work towards, and that is that I want to learn acro yoga. Acro yoga is that really cool thing that really cool people like Sam Calder and stuff do, where it's like, we'll put some B-roll here. You've got people on the floor, you've got like a base and you've got a flyer, and like with a partner, you're doing this cool yoga stuff together. Yeah, so acro yoga is something that I really want to do, but to get reasonable at acro yoga, you have to actually be able to do a straight leg raise as the base, because I'm likely to be the base, because I'm hench, obviously. And my hamstring flexibility is just so bad. So I've actually been working on my hamstrings over the last couple of weeks. The way I do it is when I'm brushing my teeth, my electric toothbrush tells me every 30 seconds, it like buzzes. So for each 30 seconds, I do like one leg, the other leg, one leg, the other leg in terms of hamstring stretches. And I have actually found that my hamstring flexibility has noticeably improved in the last 2 or 3 weeks of doing this with brushing my teeth, because I'm trying to get my hamstrings more flexible to the point that I can then successfully be a base during acro yoga. So again, this is another example of where having the project of trying acro yoga requires me to be a baseline level of flexibility, and I'm hoping that will A, be fun, because acro yoga seems really cool, but B, that it will help me kind of get to my flexibility and stretching goal without that being an explicit goal. And goal number 5, we have to get better at singing. Honestly, I don't really have a project associated with this. I probably should. Maybe something around busking, maybe busking in London, maybe busking on London Underground, maybe in Covent Garden and these cool places in London. But to be honest, I could just do that anyway, and I have busked in Cambridge before. So I just really want to get better at singing, because ultimately I do want to make music videos on YouTube, maybe for my second channel, maybe with the team. We've got a few people in the team who are absolutely sick at music, absolutely sick at singing. And I really like the idea of making like a team band where we film Boyce Avenue style videos here in the studio. In fact, that would be a pretty good project for the year. That would encourage me to get better at singing, encourage me to get better at piano and guitar and music theory, so that we can form this band. So that's gonna be our little project. All right, so those are my personal goals. That's what I'm following this anti-waste man system for, the stuff that I wanna do myself. Then we have a bunch of business goals as well. We've been working with a business coach and following this method on a book called Traction. That's called the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And we have 6 main goals for the year. The first one is that we want to run 3 successful cohorts of our part-time YouTuber Academy, where hopefully we can get 1,500 students and make a revenue of £3 million, $3 million, something like that from our YouTuber Academy. That would be really cool as goal number 1. Goal number 2 is to launch a bunch of other kind of evergreen courses so that we can hopefully get to the point where by the end of the year, we're making £100,000 a month from our extra courses other than the YouTuber Academy. Goal number 3 is to have the book written. That is a personal goal, but it's also a business goal. So other people are hopefully going to be helping along the way and giving me the motivation to succeed at that. Goal number 4 is that we want to have a very classy and nice and non-salesman-y sales and marketing funnel for our courses. I don't really like the way a bunch of these like internet gurus do it, and I want to do it in a nice way that doesn't shove things down people's throats. That would be ideal. Goal number 5 is that we have like core processes in the business which are documented and followed by everyone. At the moment, we have a reasonably large team of 17 people, but we've really run into the problem where the people who are here in the early days, so like me, Angus, Christian, Elizabeth, we have a bunch of stuff in our head of stuff that we've just done. And like when new people come into the business, because that stuff's not written down anywhere, it's like really hard for them to get up to speed on what's going on. So basically we want to get to a point where all of the key processes of the stuff that we do for our courses and videos and podcasts and socials and blog, etc., it's all written down so that someone else could come in and sort of follow the checklist, as it were. And finally, there's this new YouTube channel project that we're launching, which we're hoping to get to at least 100,000 subscribers. And to be honest, I'm not really a fan of these goals. Like the thing is that, like, as I said before, like I'm a fan broadly of goals that are within my control. And having a certain revenue count, a certain subscriber count, a certain kind of amount of followers, that kind of thing, it's a goal that's not really within our control. But It is there as just sort of a thing for the business. I don't like having those goals personally. And then we break those down as a business into goals that are within our control as well. Now, if you want to follow this anti-waste man system for goal setting, you will find the Notion template linked down in the video description. And completely coincidentally, Notion are also sponsoring this video. If you haven't heard by now, Notion is just like the ultimate, it's like a cross between like a Google Docs and Google Sheets and like web design software and like a content management system. And just like, it's basically an app that I have been using to organize my life for the last 2 years. Back in the day, you know, people used to come up to me and be like, hey, I bought an iPad because of your recommendation. These days, most people who recognize me on the streets in London or whatever say, I started using Notion because of your recommendations, because I made a few videos about Notion back in the day. We still use Notion for basically everything in the business. We are living in Notion all day. All of our videos are written in Notion. And I even use Notion to track things like my anti-waste man system, my annual reviews for my personal goals as well. If you want to check out Notion, then hit the link in the video description. It's completely free. You can pay for the extra plans if you want, but you can easily get by with Notion by using the completely free plan. And you can check the link in the video description for my anti-waste man template as well, which you can then duplicate into your own workspace completely for free. You don't have to pay a penny, and you can do this goal setting system if that's the sort of thing that's up your street. So thank you, Notion, for sponsoring this video, and thank you for watching this far. If you enjoyed this video, you might like to check out this video over here, which is the 21 or so life lessons that I learned in 2021. That might be interesting if you want to see the stuff that I've learned throughout the year, in addition to my philosophies on goal setting. So thank you so much for watching. Do hit the subscribe button if you aren't already, and I'll see you hopefully in the next video. Bye-bye.